I hate to see players play for stats. See, he's just standing there. The ball comes right to him. I mean, what is he supposed to do? Let it go away?
Andray Maurice Blatche, born August 22, 1986. Inconsistent, often undisciplined, and slow to mature is how the Associated Press described today's feature, March 24, 2010. This came after a game in which Andray Blatche refused to re-enter after being benched for poor defense. His team had lost 11 in a row at that point and in the trenches fighting not to lose a 12th. Not agreeing with his coach Flip Saunders, Blatche couldn't understand why he was being attacked at the time, seeing as at that point he was the Washington Wizards' leading scorer since the All-Star break, with arenas suspended and trades to Jamison, Butler and Haywood. After that game in which they lost to the Charlotte Bobcats, Blatche was the first to leave the gym, but his coach left a remark that summed up Andray Blatche's career. "He can be mad at me, whatever, but you never leave your teammates out to dry. Not after you've lost 11 in a row. 15 years, I've never seen anything like it." When it comes to the career of Andray Blatche, it was always all about Andray Blatche and what made him comfortable, not determined to be the best. He went on to sign a 3-year, $24 million extension that summer, had the best season of his career the following year, then completely fell off a cliff in all the ways that could have made him an extraordinary player. The Wizards for the next 2 seasons with Blatche were one of the worst teams in the NBA each year, yet he was given extension after extension and all the opportunities in the world to be great. Of course, it's deserving when you're blessed with the gifts he was to play a sport that rose to becoming one of the highest earning, mixed with being in the perfect era where potential was most coveted. A 6'11" power forward center that could rebound, push the ball up the floor himself with good fluidity, and stretch his range out to 3 if he wanted to, is still sought after even today. His potential would have resulted in a matchup nightmare for opposing teams on both ends, as defensively he had the talent to switch all positions with great timing and IQ to defend closer to the basket. Had Andray Blatche reached that potential in the NBA, he could have been a transcendent player. But every time he took a step forward and showed his potential, he took 10 steps back with his often described selfish attitude, off-court activity, and slow development. This resulted in a disappointing career for Andray Blatche fans, but one I'm sure Blatche himself is quite fine with, earning almost $50 million in 9 years, straight out of high school. Money is great, but here are 3 reasons Andray Blatche didn't grow into the player expected, leaving in the prime of his career. Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. You can also send a super thanks by clicking the button below. Enjoy the video. Andray Blatche was a 6'11" power forward center from Syracuse, New York that starred at Menninger High School before a 5th year at South Kent in Connecticut. By his senior year, he was a top 5 recruit in the country as NBA scouts began showing up to his games. In the final year, high school players could still directly apply for the NBA. He averaged 27.5 points, 16 rebounds, and 6 blocks a game. What scouts liked most was his unique skill of being fluid enough to push the ball up and play outside the post if need be, all while being a bit too fluid against bigs, able to swim around them for a finish. With a jump shot and continued development, Blatche seemed to have the highest ceiling in the draft. Although he received NBA interest, the shared feeling was that his potential was risky, if not developed at least a few years in college. Blatche shocked everyone when he declared for the draft in 2005. Stunt number 1, entering too soon. I think it's fair to say the NBA experiment with high school players straight to the league has worked out just fine, with the amount of not just successful stories, but Hall of Fame ones, a few considered some of the best ever. Opposite that are stories like Andray Blatche, the ones that did leave too soon and paid for it with a journeyman career and wasted potential. Blatche, although ranked 4th in the nation leaving high school, not many thought he would be a lottery pick, but at least first round, and so he decided to remain in the 2005 NBA draft. During workouts leading up to the draft, word was Blatche wasn't in as great a condition as expected and could struggle with his work ethic. He'd fall to the second round of the draft, 49th overall to the Wizards, who signed him for 2 years and by 2007 extended his contract for 5 years, $20 million. Within this time, Blatche continued to show lack of development on the court, and off was just as distracting. Immediately, he was victim of a carjacking and being shot in the chest before his rookie season, playing 29 games, averaging 2 points in 6 minutes a game. During his 7 seasons in Washington, he'd do things like host lap dance night at the strip club, refuse to enter games if not talked to a certain way, show up out of shape, arrested for driving on a suspended license, soliciting an undercover cop for sexual favors, and carrying himself like a few years in a college system with something to play for before the money was the best thing for his growth. Not to mention, he wasn't exactly drafted to the best of teams for a young guy struggling with how to be a professional. As Gilbert Arenas celebrated his victory in his beef with teammate Javaris Crittenton, Andray Blatche was seen joining the celebration, to which he was fined by the team $10,000 in 2010. Of course, he would be extended that summer, reassuring the team's confidence in Blatche, owner Ted Leonis said. He had a career year averaging 16.8 points a game and 8.2 rebounds a game following his 2010 extension and waived via amnesty clause by summer 2012, mainly because his lack of developing the maturity needed to lead the Wizards in the future. Stunt number 2, enabled. One of the problems with kids are they all aren't equally advanced in their behavior, so can't assure issues with their maturity won't come up with some of them. LeBron James's maturity versus Andray's are like night and day at the same age. What makes these kids develop even slower is if you enable the wrong one. LeBron didn't need enabling because he already knew what he wanted, what it would take to get it, and made up his mind that he was willing to do those things. I think Andray Blatche knew what he wanted and knew what he was willing to do to get it. What he wanted, though, wasn't what most expected. That kind of player needs to be led by wise veterans, which the Wizards did not have. In fact, by that point in Gilbert Arenas' career, he had already whacked the NBA earnings-wise and committed to being the biggest team clown of all time. 2 years into Andray's career, Nick Young is drafted, JaVale McGee is on the team, so veteran leadership wasn't to be counted on to help young Andray Blatche grow. They went to the strip club, he was right along with them. He was then enabled by the organization whose owner loved Andray Blatche, having been won over by Blatche's personality and the connection they had. They gave him a huge contract in 2007 and another in 2012, showing him whatever it was he was doing was just fine and he need not worry about maxing his potential. He was already straight. And of course, enabled by himself. At some point, a young kid isn't so young anymore. For Blatche to continue to show up out of shape from too much partying and once even admitting he didn't lift weights because for some reason his body wasn't able to gain muscle falls all on his shoulders. At the end of the day, Andray Blatche knew he was talented, but also knew the easy route to getting his money and chose that way. Stunt number 3, chasing the money. Like that one time Andray Blatche chased down a triple-double, he chased the money as a pro the same way, leading to him deciding not to opt into another year with the Nets, choosing instead to sign a more lucrative deal in China in 2014, an even bigger one in 2015, money he at that point would not have made in the NBA, where the market for his reputation wasn't at all open. He was 27 when he played his final NBA game and finding a nice role with the Nets, increasing his production the second year of the two with the team. The team was a playoff team both in 2012-13 and 13-14, making the conference semifinals that year with Blatche being one of the team's leading scorers. But I get it. Like I always say, everyone has different intentions when they enter into anything they do as a team. Not everyone wants to be the boss or the leader or CEO, manager or principal, just like not every talented player wants to be considered one of the best ever. Some are good with earning as much as they can while enjoying their life outside the sport at the same time. Him chasing the money wasn't a bad thing. As a businessman, he made the right move to head to China and be paid an extreme amount more than the NBA was offering, and you can have a huge impact on the team like he did, winning the championship in 2017. But it did take him away from competition at the top level, where with a little better care and focus, he could have been the same player he was in China in the NBA. All in all, maybe the Andray Blatche story is all about knowing what you want as a young player as early as possible and doing what it takes to make the best of your opportunities. For Blatche, he knew he wanted to get paid and did just enough to be. Hopefully, more will come in with the intentions to be the best instead, like Blatche could have been, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth, and I'm out.